Good afternoon. My name is Jyoti Wind. I'm a member of the Conference Planning Committee, and I'll be moderating this presentation of A Little Piece of the Rockies, the Provings of the Colorado and Common Columbine. I'm pleased to introduce our speaker, Barbara Seidnick. Would you welcome her?
Hi.
So, a little background on Barbara. Being a German native, Barbara Seidnick has been familiar with homeopathy from an early age. She is the founder of the Homeopathy School International in Boulder and has been the director of the school since 1991. She practices classical homeopathy in Boulder and Loveland. Barbara is nationally certified and has been teaching case-taking, case analysis, and materia medica since 1994. Barbara provides individual case supervision for students and group supervision for graduates of the school. She has conducted provings of amethyst, common and wild columbine, ayahuasca, and emerald. In her free time, Barbara hikes the Rocky Mountains, making sure not to miss the bloom of the short wildflower season. Let's welcome Barbara.
Okay. Hi. This afternoon, we're going to explore the depths of two exquisite flowers. First, we're going to talk about columbines in general, and then the common columbine and the wild columbine. Before we start, I'd like to say thank you to the NCH for inviting me, and I really like to thank you very much for coming. We will have several breaks for question and answers, so when we get there, let's do question and answers then. A little bit about me. Quite unintentionally, I landed in Boulder, Colorado 38 years ago. And it seems like life had the Rocky Mountains in stock for me. And when you live here, and some of you do, these incredible mountains are ever present, especially in Boulder. For the first few years, I just hiked the foothills and then later on ventured out into the high country, as Coloradans say. And what I discovered, there was something really incredibly beautiful. There it is. It is the Colorado columbine that I fell in love with, admired for many, many years, and then it took quite a few more years of hiking before this idea came up that we could prove this remedy. We proved two columbines, and we will talk about both of them and in general about columbines as well. The proving really came about by the generosity of a large number of provers, close to 80. Many of them were students and graduates of the school, and I've been the director of the school since 1991. So here you have the two columbines side by side. So there's Aquilegia Coerulea, and that is the one that grows up in the mountains, and then Aquilegia vulgaris, which around here mostly grows in gardens. So columbines are a big deal around Colorado. They are giving names to institutions and businesses. When mid-June comes around, many nature lovers hike into the mountains to get the first bloom of the first columbine. And then later on, when about mid-July, you can see just fields of columbines swaying in the wind. The bloom depends on altitude, like everything else. These flowers also are individuals, and depending on the altitude and where they grow, this is when they start blooming. So why do provings? They are a lot of work, take lots of time, and the amethyst proving we did at the school took about 4 years. To me, it was all about beauty. It's just like this flower sort of drew me in. Its spirit and its beauty really drew me in. This is how it came all about. I'd like to say a few words about beauty. And this is what I feel exactly happened to me when I looked at the columbine. Like, it drew me in, and it kind of put me outside myself, because you forget yourself when you look at something really beautiful, and you feel elevated. And what would life be without beauty? A couple of other things that came out of these studies on beauty, all kinds of different studies are made nowadays about seemingly, normal topics. There are 6 TED Talks on beauty, and in one of them they talk about that the color blue is the favorite color of most people across cultures, across 17 different cultures all over the world. And I thought, well, how that fits so well, right? Here you have the Lake Isabel in the Indian Peaks Wilderness with the incredible blue sky and the lake. It's just fits this whole idea of a beautiful place. So there are many, many columbines. The genus has 8,000 species of perennials. That's a lot of plants, right? We can never know all these plants or turn them into homeopathic remedies. I put in the German family name because that gives us a first impression of the symbolism and what this flower is about. And Hahnenfußgewächse means a rooster foot plant. Here you can see, these little tail ends coming out of the back. There are so many different columbines. I just wanted you to see them because the colors are just amazing. These pictures were taken at the Columbine Garden at the Grand Lake Lodge up above by Estes Park. And there's another one in the purple variety. You can really tell how big a deal columbines are in this area because they are actually the theme of the Colorado State song. And here it is sung by school children. This Aquilegia Coerulea, I had to learn the name, sort of trips over your tongue, grows in other states as well. It's also called the Rocky Mountain Columbine, and it grows in Arizona, Colorado, Montana, Utah, and it usually grows at 5,000 to 10,000 feet, where these huge fields of wildflowers are. And here you have the flower growing by a creek, which is a place where it often grows. You see the numbers here, 1, 2, 3 feet high and 1.5 feet wide. And that's a kind of an average because, as I said, every flower is different, and some do not kind of not comply to these standards. They get much taller, or they get very little. The flowers are arranged in this way. So there are these 2 circles, as you can see. Blue as the sky, white as the snow, and gold as the sun. And then we have these outer petals tapering into these narrow spurs. And there you can see it very clearly, how the flower actually resembles the flight of a bird a bit. This is where the name came from. Columba is Latin for dove or pigeon, and that's where Columbine comes from. And then the Latin name is derived from Aquilinius, which is Latin for eagle, and then Coerulea, Latin for blue. There's not much history on this plant because it is a wild plant. It was used by native tribes for a long time, and then a mountain climber, Edwin James, sort of discovered the plant and named it when he first climbed Pikes Peak, which is the highest mountain around here, a little bit south. Then in 1899, the Colorado school children voted it for the state flower of Colorado. These flowers are protected. You cannot pick them, not in the wild, not on public land. Don't ask me where the Columbine came from. But the ones that you pick on private land are even limited, and you cannot pick more than 25. Interesting is this herbal application by natives, right? Used as a love medicine to attract girls. Indians of different regions used it for a lot of different purposes. This one symptom of thick urine, we didn't even know. There was one prover that experienced this, and we didn't really know what to do about it. It was kind of weird, and is this a real symptom? And then we looked up thick urine in the repertory, and there are 99 remedies there, but of course not the Columbine. So we do have that symptom. It was used for sore throats and to cure diarrhea and rheumatism, which we don't know which plant parts were used, and it was also used for the sweet smell. Butterflies really like this plant. That's a good thing because they can get down into these narrow canals, these narrow flower canals, and help with pollination. Because pollination is a bit of a problem with this plant, the wasps have figured it out to bite just the tip off, and they can get directly to the nectar, and that's why the plant does not get pollinated. And that's over a long period of time could be a problem. The plant is considered toxic, but it's not toxic to livestock, and it's been eaten in salads and teas. It's known that the toxins get destroyed by heat. There are no poison reports about the Colorado Columbine available, but there is literature about all these different pains and things it can cause when you eat more than 20 grams of the leaf, not the flower. So here she is, this beautiful Columbine, captured for eternity by a camera before we used it for the proving. It's just magnificent flower, isn't it? Challenges of the proving were as usual. I mean, every proving sort of posts these challenges, right? What you have there is that you need reliable provers and you need skilled supervisors. So it's actually a good thing if you have a homeopath or homeopathic students or graduate students or people that know about symptoms and how they appear. One of the big challenges is for the provers to follow directions, to keep in regular daily contact with the supervisor, to take accurate notes. There are all kinds of issues that can go on with that. And we did provide forms and instructions and lectures to help everybody to keep on track. Now, assessing symptoms can also be a problem. So why would it be a symptom if somebody experiences an itch on their left heel and they experience it once and never again? That's something to be looked at, or to sort out the symptoms and make sure only significant symptoms are taken into the proving. Sort of like that. You can also compare quantity with quality, and what we found is that provers that experienced very individual symptoms were few, and provers that experienced like very general symptoms were many. Many provers experienced dizziness, and only a few provers experienced dizziness, falling to the left. And later on, when I show you the symptoms, we kind of categorized that and bolded the ones that were experienced by many provers, and then gave, very specific symptoms described for the ones that were experienced by smaller numbers of provers. So now we come to the remedy. I had originally spoken with Michael Quinn at Hahnemann Labs and asked him about this flower, and nobody had it, of course. So he made it and provided us with 30C and 200C potencies. There were 34 provers with 3 different groups of people, all pre-proving we recorded symptoms for 3 days. So to have an idea of what kind of symptoms people usually have in their daily lives. Because we say proving should be done by healthy people, but how healthy? Is there anybody out there that doesn't have something going on, right? So that was something we definitely needed to look at. Each prover's baseline case was taken. They logged their symptoms daily. They were in daily contact with the supervisors. And at the completion, a team of 3 people organized the data. They were not directly involved with the proving. And we logged 40 pages of symptoms. So I wanted to start with the dreams, because there's just something about the dreams that gives a good idea about the spirit of this remedy. Maybe the spirit or the essence, or what do we want to call it? But the character of a remedy comes really through in dreams. We had that in a couple of provings, but especially in this one. So what we have here is these dreams about giving birth to a baby girl, to a sea creature. Somebody's dreaming about pregnancy. Somebody's thinking about having sex, and about kissing and snuggling. And then we had these other dreams that had to do with parties and getting dressed and wearing jewelry and being really glamorous. Now this makes sense if you just associate with a flower. Shimmering dresses. Somebody thought about somebody coming into their room and looking into their jewelry box. Now, how do you look at something like this, right? It'll all tie together in a minute, I hope. This other topic was about helping and rescuing children at a pool. Now, interesting enough, many of these dreams related to water, rescuing in the water or from the water, something like this. So you could probably just categorize it as water dreams, but the helping and rescuing aspect was very strong in those dreams, so we used that. So now how does this all tie together? The only way we could think about this was that there were strong feminine aspects in these dreams, including pregnancy, birth, and saving children. Also, in the actual mental emotional symptoms, we found many symptoms associated with female hormonal states, like menopause, PMS, pregnancy, those kind of things. When we researched the Columbine, I'd like to say this, we did not start with the research until after the proving. We wanted to be unprejudiced observers. Now, in some way, I think it may have been better to research at first, because then you can identify symptoms that you may miss, right? But our research came to this. A long, long time ago, a couple of thousand years, there was a goddess in the Nordic regions, in Sweden, Norway, all this. In Germany, she's there too under a different name. And she was the goddess of love and fertility and birth. The Columbines were dedicated to this goddess. She also was a symbol of beauty, sensuality, sex, and she lived in this palace surrounded by a beautiful garden where love songs were constantly played. Now, Freya also protected children, and she could change into a falcon with the claws and fight. the dreams sort of brought out all these different sort of archetypal images of this goddess. Never the goddess itself, right? But just sort of what she was connected with. And then we had a whole other set of dreams. And all we could say is that these were dreams that started horribly, and then they had a positive ending. Now, how would you bring together a Columbine with men with machine guns entering a children's party, right? I mean, this is very strange. But the situation is not that critical, and this person is waiting to escape, or talking murderers into leaving them alone and then later even becoming friends. Of 176 dreams, 55 dreams were dreams that started very frightening and had positive outcomes. Now, to categorize this, well, you can say, yeah, we'll often have dreams and we are scared and then it turns out okay, right? Now, I'm not want to write this in stone, but the way we looked at it was that these were dreams of survival. And I'm very willing to discuss that with you, especially people that work with dreams and Jungian analysis and have an idea or could connect this in another way. So more dreams of survival. Something really dangerous turns out that it's actually in a swimming pool. Someone falls in a creek and laughs. Now this dream, required by aliens to perform at a dinner party, too scared, jumped into a crater, dropped through, come out alone and happy. Now, do you have any thoughts about this? Now, could this be something to do with birth and birth canal? Or could this be to do with the structure of the flower, maybe, with the narrow canals? Anyway, mysterious are the dreams. There were dreams of forces of nature, of being alone and being in a blizzard. Somebody was in a tornado. Other people had experienced storms in their dreams. Their rainbows is something, because one dreamer had 12 rainbow dreams. And a few, I should say, probably 4 to 6 provers also had rainbow dreams. I totally love rainbows. I've never dreamt about them before. So what we did is look at these topics and see how they could possibly relate to the plant. These survival dreams, for example. I think they did reflect the habitat of the Columbine and also the aspects of a beautiful and protective goddess. I am not a goddess person, believe me. I'm not very esoteric. You that know me know this. But this was just coming at me. There was just no way that you could ignore it, right? So we went down that road. So this delicate, beautiful, fragile plant, if you have seen it in the wilderness, it survives up there. There are storms, there is hail. It's just incredibly rough. And this very fragile little plant makes it. And then also we thought that this had to do with the Freya, the symbol of femininity, but also strength. She was fighting. That was part of her. She was fighting to protect, the feminine, the mother thing, like fighting to protect their own children, the weak. Do you have any questions so far?
I have one.
Yes.
I was just curious, the percentage of male and female provers and the age range.
Yeah, I don't have anything about the age range.
Okay.
I mean, usually the students at the school and then some people who have graduated for a few years, I would say is about 32, 32 to 60.
Okay.
And then we had 8 male provers, of which we dropped 2 completely from the proving because they had no symptoms. The provers definitely didn't have any of the hormonal symptoms, but later on I'll get into that a little bit. Yeah? There's a mic there.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm not really sure what to make of it, but when I think of the word Columbine, I think of the Columbine massacre.
I knew somebody would bring this up.
But when the dream came up of the machine guns and
Yeah.
the children's party,
Yes.
it's like chills ran up my spine. I don't really exactly know what to make of it, but it's as if it's working its way into the mythology of the plant a little.
Right. Well, you know, there was a discussion if we should bring this up or not. No, it's good. It's good. I do not remember the year of the massacre. Does anybody remember that year? I know the Colorado license plate with the Columbine on it is to honor that, huh? 1999. So it could have been somebody dreaming this because they had the memory of the Columbines, the name. So this is something that I can't solve. I have only questions about this, but why are provers dreaming about these topics? Especially if several provers dream about the same or a similar thing. Yeah, I try to get into it a little bit later, but I don't think I have any answers to this. Dreams, narrow passages. Long river, narrow with long skinny piers, long skinny passages, narrow space hiding. So this prover, number 307, had 12 dreams about narrow spaces. In this case, all symptoms in a proving are part of the proving, but if somebody has 12 occurrences of something, I would consider that an important symptom. Yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't put any symbolism to that. I think that's coincidence. And then we had dreams of cars, which were odd. Why would people dream of cars? And the only thing we could find in all these different cars that they had similar colors, yellow, white, or blue striped, or something like this. And then this one dream, fitting a new carpet into a blue car. And one person dreamt about blue and yellow tablecloths, which are the Scandinavian colors, which is where all this symbolism resides. It's also Lufthansa colors. But anyway, I can only say this is what happened, right? Altogether, we concluded that, you know, definitely the dream symbolism reflected the feminine, the aspects of Freya, with you know, that we already talked about, and maybe also reflected the habitat of the plant, and then also reflected the structure of the plant, like this narrow spaces and the colors. Now we're coming to the mental symptoms. So there were many, and we did group them by these topics. I do have the individual symptoms, and we can go through it quickly if it gets too much. These were the themes of the mental symptoms that we recorded. One thing that was unbelievable was this hypersensitivity, this being overly excited to an unbearable state. And then there was this anger, so easily triggered by something. And this was really incredible. We have a graduate who is the most gentle person you can imagine. And she's so sweet and gentle. And she has no ounce of aggression in her. And she hit a friend. It took them 2 or 3 months to make up. This was definitely the proving getting to people. And there was anxiety, impatient, and irritated provers. For the first 1.5 weeks of the proving, I had horrible agitation, was much less patient. I was anxious, fidgety, and flustered. I couldn't focus or remember what I had just been looking at. That's great to have it in a classroom, right? A student like that. There was a lot of high energy in the proving, and actually some people felt motivated and cheerful and had extra energy, and I put some prover numbers down. And then this other side of being irritable, impatient, but with the same sort of emotional agitation. We also had mentally focused and definitely not sympathetic for the husband or the kids and wanting to be left alone. No patience for the family, which reminded me of sepia, which is a very hormonal feminine remedy, right? Averse to company, depressed and moved to tears by music. And then there was also this very relaxed and calm state. Some people felt less hurried and sedated. This prover said, feels like, and this was a woman, feels like I have taken a mini Valium. It's like a pleasant, sedated feeling. And then let's move on to some of the physical symptoms. Now, there are a lot more symptoms in each of the body systems in this proving, and you can look them up at our website, and I think you have the link in your handout, and I will also show it to you later. Head pains, sharp stinging pains were most prominent, and there was pulsating in the right temple, sensation as of hair standing up, and this was one prover, sensation as if hair is being pulled to the crown of the head. Just unusual symptoms. That's why I noted them down. Many provers were dizzy. Oh, those poor provers. So dizziness by many, many. And then individual provers experiencing this a little bit more specifically by standing or by bending forward, or this sensation of falling to the left, and then this wave-like sensation in the forehead, worse from movement, which made me think of the flower. But those are just association. That's like fantasy, right? It's like, oh yes, the flower waves, and they had this waving sensation in the head. It is like nice to hear, but what does it really mean for the medicine? Ear and hearing, I put this down because I thought it was very odd that somebody's pain in the ear would be better from cold. I don't know. Have you heard this? Is it unusual? In my book it was. So better pressure, better cold, and a strong affinity for the left side. Or from shifting to the right to the left ear. And this also happened with other parts of the body. There were also lots of eye symptoms that you could look up. The mouth extremely dry. There were a few provers that developed stinging pain in the mouth, at the tip, one at the tip of the tongue, one inside the cheeks. There was a lot of dryness, had to lick my lips. Lips are splitting, can't swallow. Now, in Colorado, we get very dry. I'm putting it there for what it's worth. Watery, clear, runny nose. Many, many provers had that. I mean, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11, that's a good number to experience the same symptom around the same times. And left nostril only by these 3 provers. Other things like soreness in the nose, tickling, itching, sneezing, multiple sneezing. The throat, scratchy sensation with mucus. I thought that was a little odd, but I mean, maybe not. You know, scratchy sort of tells me it's dry. If there's mucus, maybe it wouldn't be scratchy, but this is what it was. Swollen, raw, aching pain. Again, worse on the left side, left tonsil. Then hot burning, both sides, with congestion. And then a lump sensation, and I'll talk about this a little bit later, because this had a significance to me. 3 provers, remember the number, 3 provers had lump sensation with choking. And now we got so much nausea. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, do I count right? 12 provers experienced nausea. Some with a sensation of heat, which is also a characteristic that came through this proving. Thirsty for cold water, decreased appetite. This all is related to the nausea they experienced. This last bullet is one prover, intense nausea, excruciating pain, followed by bouts of diarrhea, body hot, better cool, and better laying still. I remember that report. That was, oh my, you poor thing. Our provers are heroes. They really are. I mean, people put themselves through quite a bit when they do this. Abdomen, sharp pain, again, like we had in the head, and this time on the left side, these 4 provers. Some cramping and foul-smelling diarrhea, but they felt okay, maybe because it wasn't a real symptom, it was just a proving symptom. They felt okay, but they had all this stuff going on. Cramping, and again, heat sensation. A lot of heat in this remedy. So now, with this flower that I'm trying to associate with the goddess Freya and their being erotic and all this fertility and everything, the sexual desire is decreased. Again, stinging, shooting pain upward inside the vagina. There were some menses that were late, some menses were early, a few provers, and you can find these numbers when you look at the list that we have in the proving reports. Nosebleeds before rising at the day of menses, and painful cramps with nausea. And what was most predominant in the extremity section was the heat. Hands, both hands, hands hot and clammy, hands red. There was a lot of burning and heat in the upper arms, worse touch, worse movement, burning soles of the feet. So we need to add it to that rubric. Stiffness and arthritis, worse in the morning and worse cold. So about the heat, the soles of my feet were burning. I had a hot feeling extending to my arms, hands, face, my chest being very hot, burning and turning red, better fanning, better drinking cold water. On the next day, the heat stopped. I felt cold and chilled, chills starting on my neck, running down my entire body. So what does that remind you of? You know, I was thinking of flu, maybe, yeah? Of a flu, or of menopause, except with menopause, this happens in hours usually. Yeah, there's the heat, the heat, the heat. You drink cold water, you get all sweaty, and then you get all cold, and chills run down. At least that's what I experienced. I'm speaking from my own. The general symptoms, energy and heat, was a big topic. You can see by these numbers. Drinking cold water relieved the heat for some, and there was a lot of increased energy. Tingling sensations, increased energy and tingling sensations anywhere in the body. Pains moving from the left to the right. Now this tingling and this heat and this excess energy and this irritation, how would that all fit together? We get there. Immediately after taking the first dose of the remedy, my face felt hot. This sensation gradually intensified. I felt nauseous, had a hot sensation in my stomach, and my lips were buzzing. I wanted to take my clothes off and roll in the snow. Now you have a combination of all of these symptoms in one prover, but some of these symptoms were singly experienced by individual provers. You know, what happened during this proving was unusual. And I asked Nick Nosselman before I started, because it's like, you know, is this something that is significant? Are these really proving? Are these really cures that we're seeing? We've done a few provings before. We've seen some symptoms disappear, and we've seen a few provers being cured of particular things. Very few. Maybe a handful in like 4 provings. So here, we're getting all these curative effects from the Colorado Columbine. I have no explanation to offer, but we had, coming back to men or women, there was a student in our class who had been in the first Iraq war. And do you remember, Barbara? He had horrible dreams. He woke up with these bloody dreams of being in the jungle, people coming with machine guns, with machetes. I remember one dream he said was about these women he was trying to protect. So during the proving, his dreams became benign. So he was still like experiencing sort of dangerous situation, but it never became bloody. Nobody was ever killed. And I've asked him, now this is many years ago, I've asked him last year, and it's still true. He lives in Fort Collins. So I think we can call that a cure. Menstrual cramps improved for one person, and her vomiting was gone. There were 3 provers that had chronic nasal congestion, and that was gone for a few months after the proving, so I can't attest to if this was a final cure, you know. It'll be good to follow up on this at some point. One person had a 6 months inflammation of her left nostril, and we saw, right, in the proving, we saw like soreness in the nose, left nostril, and all these things, and hers stopped. She tried all kinds of creams and antibiotics, and it wouldn't go away, so it was gone. And then we had a drop in the diabetic glucose level of a dentist that was in our class, and from Fort Morgan. This is how much that dropped, and that continued for months, because she was in class for, I think, another 8 months, and it was still keeping steady at 116 to 121. Someone's depression lifted during and after the proving. Well, do we want to do a proving with somebody who is depressed? Well, you know, sometimes you don't know, and it comes out later. So this is kind of like taking the case, and they say, oh, I have a horrible wart on my left side of my forehead, and then you find out in the 4th appointment that they also are depressed, right? So this was kind of like that. Lifetime acne disappeared, long-term skin irritation stopped, and a fungal rash that this person had been dealing with over years disappeared, and someone's insomnia was cured. I mean, that was worth doing the proving for, wasn't it? We are here to serve. What I can suggest is, you know, all the things that you just heard about and more, that this would be a remedy for treating these kind of symptoms if everything fits together, right, in a classical sort of way. You know, if it's just a headache, well, there's so many stabbing headache remedies, but you want to make it all, see how it all fits, and then give the remedy. Some of these sensations we had come up now become into more of a place where it makes sense. And that is that this plant, Aquilegia Coerulea, is part of the Ranunculaceae family. You know, these are probably all good friends of yours, or these remedies right here, right? I think this Aconitum napellus picked a wonderful spot with a great view of the mountains, right? I looked into some of these flowers, and we studied the remedies and to see what the similarities were with the Columbine and what the differences were. This is a nice picture of a clematis, and I hadn't really seen many pictures of clematis before. Now, this picture was taken by our webmaster, who lives right opposite of the entrance to the Indian Peak Wilderness, and she's a plant lover, and she takes pictures all the time, and she had this particular clematis picture. And then here's Delphinium staphysagra, or larkspur. There's a town here, south of here, called Larkspur. Do you know that town? Some of you do. I've never been there. I always imagine it full of staphysagra. Here are the sensations that we summarized, just the sensations that came through this proving, right? This being overly excited, being aggressive and irritable, this intense heat. With sometimes, there were 2 people that measured their temperature. Their temperature went up during the proving, not much, just a couple degrees. This tingling, bubbling, buzzing, electric shock-like sensations, and then the sharp, stinging, stabbing that we saw in all different parts of the body. I looked at Rajan Sankaran's schema, and these are the sensations that he listed for the Ranunculaceae family. I think they fit. You know, most of them fit pretty well. You know, this being morbidly sensitive and getting irritated, and very excessive irritability, feeling harassed and angry, electric-like shock, and then the other sensations. So, do you have any questions? Yes.
Hi, Barbara. Thanks for presenting.
Oh,
I just came from this morning's session on Jan Scholten's plant schema.
Oh, yeah.
I'm curious to know if you know the APG code for this plant
I don't.
and how it fits. Just
Right.
curious.
I'm not an herbalist. I don't know much about plants at all. It's just like I saw this Columbine and we did a proving.
I was just curious how it fits into Jan Scholten's schema. That's all.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. Maybe you could check it out and let me know.
I'm trying and I can't get the darn code off the internet.
Oh, I see. Well, okay, we're finding the botanical code, and then maybe, well, you know, there may not be a code for the Colorado Columbine. It may not be known that well. Now, when we talk about the next Columbine, that's a different story. But there's not that much information on this particular flower. Anybody else? Yeah, Cheryl. It's, okay, it's AQU period COER period. It's hard to say Coerulea. Do you want to all say it together? It's sort of is a tongue roller, especially for a German tongue. So let's get on then with the next Columbine. Do we need to jump up and down a little bit? No, we're good. We can do it. 2 provings in 2 hours. That's a lot of material. This material was shrunk. It's very little compared to what's there. This is the common Columbine, and you can see how it's different, right? It's much smaller, the flower, and it sort of hangs down a little bit. You know, it's blue, altogether blue. And you know what? When I wanted to prove the Columbine, I thought, I wonder if we have that remedy. Because I've heard Europeans mention it. And so I opened Clark, Materia Medicas. Those are some of my favorite books. I always go to Clark. If I cannot figure out something and I want to find a complete match to what this person's symptom is, I go to Clark. And other things, but it's very well described specific symptoms in there, because a lot of them are from the provings. So here we have the common Columbine, Aquilegia vulgaris, Ranunculaceae, in our Materia Medica. And guess what? It covers globus hystericus, this lump sensation in the throat. Hansen gives the following indications for this unproved drug. It's in our Materia Medica, was never proven. Clavus hystericus of women in climaxes with vomiting of green substance, especially in the morning, globus hystericus. So what did I do now? I called Michael Quinn again, because he's not there, he's not with us anymore. He was a very incredibly knowledgeable and experienced pharmacist in California. Hahnemann Labs, right? So I called him again and I said, how about this flower? It's in our Materia Medica and it's not proven. He says, I know. And I said, should we prove it? He says, of course. Prove this and any other unproven remedy in our Materia Medica. So I invite you, go look. We can maybe prove a lot of remedies that are just listed and we don't really have the backup for it. Now here is the description of this one. You can really nicely, in this drawing, see that the talons at the back that really look like bird claws, right? It's completely blue, it just has the little yellow stamens in the center. And now, name origination, very similar. We're going again by Columba for doves. And then there's another few, and I put down one, which is that in Saxon for Columbine, it's called Kulfre for pigeon and Wirt for plant. And then Aquilegias, again, for the flower spurs resembling an eagle's talon. Now, I like to show you this picture. This really looks like a circle of doves, does it? If you are interested in plants and plant families, and you want to see tons of pictures, go to this site, plantportraits.com. This is a website put together by Jürgen Weiland in Germany. All of the pictures on there he took himself. He has it organized by families. This man knows plants. And when he was here at the school, he was here, there was still a little bit of snow on the ground here and there. I think it was April. And he taught at the school, and I took him for a walk. And he would go around and look at all these little shriveled up, dried up plants that had survived a Colorado winter and say, oh, look, this is this, and this is that. And I said, how can you tell? He goes, well, you see the shape, and you see the seeds. So, I mean, I have great respect for him. So originally, this common columbine grew all over Europe and Asia, and it grew on rocky hills, and it grew wild, yeah? Then it started dying out. In the 1800s, it was put into English gardens, and it became like a flower, the fashionable flower. Switzerland added it to this red list, which is a list of endangered plants. And then in Germany, it was the plant of the year because they realized that it may go away at some point. It's not only urbanization that's a problem, it's also pollination. Because we have this whole thing about the bees, right? The bees, do you get emails like that and things? The bees are dying out. Not in my backyard, but they are dying around the world somehow. The columbines are losing their opportunity to be pollinated. Only these insects with large tongues or these really smart wasps, which don't pollinate, can get to the nectar. So I just put a website here that you have in your handouts that if you're interested in the Save the Bee movement, that's something to check out. Now, this common columbine has a really rich history. And you can Google and Google and get further and further into it, into all this whole Nordic mythology. But also, Hildegard von Bingen mentioned this plant in her work already around sometime during her lifetime, 1098 to 1179. And then the earliest reference to the columbine as a garden plant is made in a painting called Paradiesgärtlein, Little Paradise Garden, by an unknown master. It's on wood, and it can be seen, and I think it's in Hanover, Germany, in a museum. And right up here, we figured this was the columbine. Now, these old paintings sort of fade and change color, and it's said that it is in there. If you find a better one, then I'll buy you a latte. Because the color is not right. It has the right sort of, flower arrangement and everything, but the color isn't right. So this plant has been used for a long, long time in history. And this guy, if you really want me to say his name, I will, Tabam Montanus, some guy who must have lived on a mountain somewhere, suggested to apply the seeds to a groom's palms to instantly arouse the bride. Now, this is a little bit like the Native Americans to attract girls, right? And then he said you could make tea and break the evil spell of impotence. Then one of the very first botanical books recorded 12 cultivated varieties of the Columbine back then. That's a lot, yeah? Yeah, we've lost a lot of this knowledge, I think, and through the internet and all this is coming back to us. The magic number 12 again? Yes. Maybe we can figure out what that's all about. By 1606, 270 medical applications, so herbal applications, right? Folk medicine. Do you know R.W. Emerson? He was a part of this transcendentalist movement, which is interesting to look into, and I put the link there for you. And he was a naturalist, and he said, a woodland walk, a quest for river grapes, a mocking rush, a wild rose, or rock-living columbine, salve my worst wounds. More folk medicine, and I already shortened it. But this is very interesting. Crushed leaves to cure cancer. Folk medicine attempted to cure cancer. I had no idea until I read this. And then they did use the spring shoots and eat them like asparagus to prevent cancer. Other things, skin rashes, gum loss, and jaundice. Now, this is interesting because it also coincides with the proving symptoms we already saw with the other Columbine, but they are different and they have different symptoms. But this one fits also, it helps with childbirth, menstrual pain. It was mixed into mattresses for fertility, and Freya, the goddess of fertility. So it all sort of comes together here a little bit with the folk medicine, the proving, and the history, and the symbolism. You can read a lot about the Aquilegia vulgaris, chemical composition, and what it does. There's a bunch of research on it. So this is really helpful for homeopaths, right? We have proof. Now, this cyanogenic glycoside has cancer-causing properties. I only pulled this out of a whole sort of description. Please, look it up and read more about it if you like. Now, this kind of suggests to me that maybe this is a remedy. It's a ranunculacea. Maybe it could go into our cancer miasma remedies. So there we have this antioxidant, antimicrobial activity, because it does have vitamin C and flavonoids. If you could go and find out, there's so much information on vitamin C and flavonoids. It can't be all brought up here. And the Columbine. I was just completely impressed what's out there. So my summary here again is that it has something to do with Freya, and this was the actual plant that was dedicated to her. Or as far as we know, we don't know for sure, but it was Columbine. And here she is with her, and then this whole thing about beauty, sensuality, sex, fertility, birth, crops. It's like the other goddesses in other cultures, like Kali, or, it's sort of like that. But she also had this beautiful coat with the talons of the falcon. And she could change herself into the falcon. And at times, she changed her lover into a wild boar. Now, this picture here is about the symbolism of the Columbine. And somebody who painted the Columbine into many of his paintings was Leonardo da Vinci. Now, there are a couple of his paintings that I didn't bring here because he did a painting of Bacchus. Do you know Bacchus, the god of wine and parties and sex and having a good time? And he has this gang of women that travel with him that are fierce. But Bacchus was so dark, the painting is so old and so dark that you can barely see it, the Columbine. And then this original here of Leda and the Swan is also not really available. It's like cracked up and things like that. So I got this copy by Francesco Melzi, an Italian painter. How more fertile can it get, right? So I don't know if you know about Leda, but Leda was the wife of this king of Sparta. And she had sex with her husband and with Zeus, the boss of all the Greek gods, right? With Zeus, who disguised himself as a swan, and she had sex with both of them at the same time. And bore 2 eggs, which each egg had twins in it. And these twins started a whole nother line of history in the Greek mythology. It's all on Wikipedia. You can find it there and then go on from there. Now what you see is this little plant she holds right here, right? And that is the Columbine, which holding a Columbine in the left hand at that time was considered to be a sign of fertility, which was important then. Yeah. What? And it's a left-sided remedy. Well, that's interesting. Yeah, well, we don't know yet. That was the Colorado Columbine. Let's see where this one goes, right? Columbines, as far as symbolism go, have quite the reputation, as you can tell. Naked women and swans and stuff. Several paintings, and they always portrayed some kind of secret love, sensuality, some seduction, and something about fertility. I don't know if you've heard about the meaning of flowers. You can go search the meaning of flowers. They're talking about how flowers were used in history. And even now, if you watch like this gorgeous English queen wedding, there, Kate and, what's his name? Kate and William's wedding. And you saw the hats and the bouquets. And actually, I'm a lover of Rocky Mountain PBS TV. And that's where I get all my education. No, a lot of it. And TED Talks. But in the meaning of flowers, they use that in England still. When they make those bouquets, they don't just throw a bunch of flowers together. Each one has a meaning according to this old sort of list that they have. In the 17th century, it was a faux pas to give a young woman Columbine because it implied all these things, sex and seduction, and you wouldn't give that to a young woman. And then in Hamlet, Ophelia gives her husband a bouquet that has Columbines to show everybody what he was doing, right? How he was, what a scoundrel he was, having affairs with all these women. She had to express herself somehow, I guess. At some point, Christianity, like with many other things, took over the symbolism of this plant. And they transferred all these values from, all this symbolism from history and sort of imposed it on Mary. The arrangement of how the Aquilegia vulgaris flowers are on the stem became a symbol of the 7 cardinal virtues of Christianity, which I didn't know were there, but this is them right here. And it also related the perfect composition in paintings to the divinity of paintings of the Holy Spirit and Jesus. Now, here's one of those paintings. And this is when Mary flees to Egypt. It's actually, this is what happened. I had this painting in a PowerPoint for a long, long time, and it's in an article that we wrote about the plant. And so now, like it's a few years later, and I'm trying to find this painting, right? And I don't know where it was, and I don't know the name of the painter. And so I found it this time, and his name was Mondsee, Moon Lake. Like in Tibetan symbolism, that's a very feminine symbol. But the painter was called Moon Lake, and he painted this. It took me forever, because you know what I had to get beyond? All the prices for tickets to Egypt. If you Google flight into Egypt, that's what you get. You get airlines. Then I thought about it. I thought, I'm going to do it in German, Flucht nach Ägypten, and that's when I found it. Anything else coming up that you want to ask about or talk before we get into the actual proving? We should drink water. We're in Colorado. So you can see it here, you know, this little fragile flower, right? Here we go to the actual proving. And Michael Quinn didn't have it, and he sent me to Standard. So Standard had this mother tincture of this plant since they bought it from Burke and Toffel in 1978, and they had a profile on it. They made the remedy in 85, and then they were so generous to supply us with 30C and 200C hand-succussed potencies. We had 33 provers, 3 different groups again. We did this pre-recording of the symptoms, but this time for 1 week. The baseline case was taken. So everything like the regular provings. Something was that at the end, we came out with 90 pages of symptoms. And I like to jump right into the dreams again, because we did that with the other Columbine, and also it's like, where does this come from? How can they have these images in their dreams after they take a Columbine remedy, right? And now this is different than the other one. These dreams are very different. People dream about nature, which I would have expected from the wild Columbine, right? But that didn't have, well, the weather and forces of nature, but not like landscapes and gardens and beautiful herbs. I saw a beautiful landscaping with wild animals, very nice and peaceful. Caves and monsters and coves, and this one person, there was a palace with a garden, and there was a garden, but this one person said, an unworldly garden like paradise with a peaceful palace. In this dream, I was building a palace and then resting in it. I was so relaxed, it was amazing. So I have to now think of Freya, right? Because we just talked about this palace that she had. Slept well, had a dream about fire. Short enough after that, I swam in a huge swimming pool, a lot of water again, diving and flying above the water, kind of like a bird. After that, a beautiful garden, not like Earth. I made a bouquet from herbs and flowers. And I had to put her just one more time in here because she actually asked you. There are so many Freya images. If you Google goddess Freya or Freya, you get lots of images, and they are all fantasy. They are all fantasy. Nobody has an image of Freya. There is a very old stone tablet, which you can hardly make out, what's on there. But I picked this one because it has the 5 petals and blue, and she wears it on her head, and there's the feminine and the moon and the blue dress and all of that. So this palace that Freya had with the garden full of flowers was also a palace where fallen heroes went to rest. So somehow, if you think about it, it's almost like this idea of old life dies and new life returns, right? Because she was also the goddess of fertility and protecting children and the feminine. The feminine, what else can I say? The images that we had here were palace, unworldly garden, and flowers, which is probably related to the archetype at some point. The beautiful landscapes, which seemed to fit her habitat. And then there was this one dream. I just had to put it in here because I thought it was so beautiful. A group of energy beings with overlapping bodies. And I did have to think of the flower, the structure of the flower, these fine, overlapping flower petals. Now, other flowers are like that, but this one is especially fragile. Now, what do we get here? We get sexual dreams, not erotic dreams, not kissing, hugging dreams, sexual dreams. Having sex with strangers, having a lot of sex, abusive sexual dreams. Like this dream, this person is naked in public and masturbates in public and necking. One person was masturbating in public, necking in a parking lot. and this is the comment: masturbating in the restroom of a grocery store. Oh no, that's not the parking lot one, that's the grocery store. But there were several dreams, and I drew some out. There were several masturbation dreams. And then this person says, masturbating in the restroom of a grocery store. My boyfriend was shopping, another woman laughing because she knew I was masturbating in the next stall. Had sex on a table in a restaurant. Wasn't a big deal, except I was a little embarrassed because perhaps I didn't perform well. And then there were this one dream was about an affair. And, people said a little bit more about it, but I shortened it. But, this older lawyer having an affair with a younger woman, that happens all the time, right? So, but, this was kind of an icky dream, like she was at his mercy. We had violent dreams: being murdered, being shot with machine guns, being held hostage, being choked, gunshot wounds, blood and bleeding, copious amounts of blood. So now it gets worse. Oh no, not yet. After that. But this is a pretty bad dream. I am holding and snuggling my child. My ex is there and gets mad. He grabs a bucket of gasoline and throws it in my direction. He turns on a torch and huge flames of fire shoot in my direction. I am running and fall to the ground. I could feel the heat on my back. I lose the child and I'm in nothing but a t-shirt. No rescue here. Do you see the difference in the dreams of these flowers? There's no rescue. This is a horrible outcome. And there's a dream of fire again. So there were there were fire dreams, but the fire was always built in with some other idea or topic. So it could go maybe in the repertory as dreams of fire. So here, this is when it gets worse. Being set on fire. Women being roasted alive like turkeys, one person dreamt. Women disappear, women being raped, and a physically abusive affair. And then we did have some protective dreams, few, but this is the one where the mother abused the son, and I got really protective and angry and said that I would call the police if she didn't stay away from him. Parts of the dream were about protecting some and not trusting others. There were dreams where protection was sort of mixed in with animals, and all these animals came up in dreams. All of those. This dream was about pursued by animals and protecting. So I was trying to keep people safe from animals in a desert, particularly my in-laws who were dawdling down a creek bed. I left worried and helpless. There was some problem closing the window. I had a fear of bears coming in. There were dreams of buildings and structures, not so much about people doing something somewhere. These were actually about the structures, how to get into the back of a building from a parking lot going under something. Parking lot, large houses, apartments. Now, I don't know, if you have a large group of people dreaming something, I think many people have structures in their dreams somehow. But the ones I listed here didn't have much. It was just like dreamt of a cruise ship, dreamt of an amphitheater, dreamt of a concert hall. And so dreamt of an apartment in a camp, a small apartment, several apartments. I listed this, and there's one other name for the Columbine, which I didn't mention before. And this plant is also sometimes called meeting house. So what kind of connection is this, right? This is a list. So. And then there were dreams about actual gatherings, like life celebrations with family, friends, social gatherings, music, weddings, sitting in a meadow, making music at a wedding, watching. I don't think I listed it in this PowerPoint, but there were two provers. They dreamt of watching the Grateful Dead play live. I have no idea what that is about, but we had strange dreams again about cars and colors. So these were even more intense as far as blue van, blue striped semi-truck, white car, blue Camaro, blue Corvette, and truck losing control. So this person dreamt of a 1970 blue Camaro racing a blue Corvette. I smelled the burnt rubber as they took off. And we listed that under dreams of color. I mean, there were a few accidents, like this truck losing control. There were a couple other dreams about accidents. Possibility, this could be a remedy in the dream section for accidents. And then glamour and beauty, which makes sense again to us, right? Because it's a beautiful flower. Dreamt of being roller girl, really glamorous, never taking off the roller skates, having a lot of sex. Fashion shows, beautiful dresses, being dressed up. So in a way, what we do have again is a relation to the Freya, a mythological sort of connection, the palace, the gardens, the flowers, then the meeting places and the gatherings, and we had dreams about glamour and beauty, sex and pregnancy, and violence and protection. And then both Columbines had these two dream topics in common, right? The water, the blue, the animals, dresses and beauty, glamour, cars, gatherings, sexuality, and pregnancy. And then at some point they differed. And this is the comparison of the wild Columbine to the garden Columbine. Like the wild was more about erotic, you know, and the common was more sexual. And then these narrow passages, I don't know if that could go with birth, helping and rescuing, clearly saying those words, helping and rescuing. And then on the garden side, the protection, I was protecting. Blue, white, and yellow in the wild plant, which has these colors, and only blue in the garden plant. Glamour and attire, more about the dresses and everything, glamour and beauty. And then forces of nature, kind of opposite to magical places and gardens. And then the narrow passages, like we think may have to do with a plant structure, were in somewhat reflected in these dreams of meeting places as well, right? There were weird places people had to get to, and driving up a curvy road and climbing up a cliff and going into the garage, and you know, so there were these like narrow stairway and these kind of dreams. My question is, if anybody is doing dream analysis, I would love to have a discussion or a conversation with people about this, because I don't feel comfortable to say, you know, it's like this. So I don't really know, how do these images associated with this goddess get into a dream? Not the goddess, but the images, right? Well?
Freya came from stories that were generated a long time ago.
Yeah, can you go to the mic? We want to have you.
Hello? Okay, that's good. The story of Freya was described in a long, long time ago.
Yes.
Nobody really knows exactly when. So, but we know that the Columbine was around at that time. And I mean, why would we think that only today we have people like Batch, you know, that know the essence, you know, of flowers and other plants? So someone obviously, you know, I say obviously, I mean, developed a story related to Columbine that probably has the flower essence that they knew of it, and then through the years it flows, and no one can see what the connection is until somebody like yourself comes along and says, gee, I think I'll really take a closer look at this, and the essence of it and the proving that we did today corresponds to what they knew to be true of the essence of that flower back in the day. And that's my take on it.
You know, one other thought I had was, what if these shamans were eating these columbines, you know, and they were getting these images? But then, is there like some kind of energy, a flower energy that can kind of create these portals to like old ancient data that we have? You know, we talk about energy with all of our remedies. And, you know, we match energy with people and remedies and these things. But is there like a spirit here that comes through in these dreams? Or just the vibrational energy of the plant? How could it unlock these archetypal images that are in our subconscious, right? There's lots of stuff in there. basically everything, right? Basically, the whole development of humankind somehow. Any more comments or questions on that? No, I'll go on to the mental themes. Indifference to other feelings, we had that somewhat in the other proving, but this mind chatter, this internal dialogue that people couldn't turn off, that was a different thing. Intolerable inner thoughts, and this sensation that the body was separated from the mind, or that the body was actually separated. They felt separated from themselves, as if possessed by a second personality, or feeling like a specter, like a witness. While they're doing the proving, they're observing themselves, but still, spectator to events rather than being involved. Isolation, sense of distance, like to be alone. So this person did this. I began to drive to Denver, but felt really spaced out and pulled over for a minute. I felt as though my mind was separated from my body, or that I was hallucinating. I tried to drive on after several minutes, but decided to go home. I talked to my boyfriend when she got home. He reminded me of the remedy and said this was weird for me. And I felt more emotional and got really upset with him. I hung up the phone without saying goodbye, which I never do. If this is me reacting to the remedy, I am glad I only took one dose. So it's a little similar to the other Columbine, like this irritation, easily irritated. So there it is, cranky, irritated, PMS-like. These provers actually said those words, PMS-like. Irritable small things, and that's the Ranunculaceae topic as well. Impatient, anger, throwing things, having a short fuse. And again, these high alert states. So high alert, thinking clearly, aware, focused, creative, expansive. These were all words we got out of the proving, and they were actually sort of the polarity to being centered, present, relaxed, serene, and peaceful feeling. And this happened in individual provers. One prover may have just felt elated, another prover may have felt very aware, but it also happened in alternation. So being really highly alert and really dealing with high energy, and then at the end of the day having this other feeling, this opposite feeling, this quiet feeling. There was restlessness at night, restless but can't move. What was really strange was this obsessive desire to clean. I don't want to say that this is an aspect of the feminine, okay? So there were 3 provers that had this obsessive desire to cleaning. And one prover, it lasted for 6 weeks. Then we have this difficulty concentrating, fuzzy, groggy thinking, slow, very slow, forgetful, absent-minded, can't make decisions, spacey, empty-headed, and disoriented, no sense of time. And these words, sluggish, slow motion, were mentioned by all of these provers. So exhausted, sleepy. I need to move slowly. I'm slow in responding. Have to slow down, or I will vomit if I move fast. Motion sickness remedy. Maybe, right? Restless, tossing, turning, we have lots of remedies that have that. Waking from thirst, waking from beautiful dream, and in the sleep, the sensation of watching myself. The waking times were around 3 a.m. Right-sided, not left-sided like the other, right-sided, all of these provers. Then the tingling, the Ranunculaceae sensations, and then this is a pressure. The other Columbine felt like it was pulled up, the hair. Lightheaded, empty-headed, head open, expanded, and again, heat. Dizziness off to the left. We had that before, right? Circles spinning, pressure on the crown of the head, and dizziness, worse movement, which is very common, actually. So physical, we get the throat, and this was my pet peeve, right? Is that how you say it? Because I found it in Clark with a lump sensation. So I was expecting a lot of people would get this lump sensation. No, not so. We get soreness in the back of the throat. The lump was only experienced by 2 provers. And then dryness, burning, all of this, and the throat symptoms were often made better by sipping cold water. Nausea, pretty present. Not as many provers had nausea than in the other one. And then after eating, we have a lot of specific ones. Nausea with a hungry, empty feeling, nausea with a burping of a metallic taste in the mouth, and then heartburn with a metallic taste and intense thirst, and then painful hiccup as if stabbed. So that's that stabbing sensation again. Now the sex drive in this remedy is significantly increased. Some couple of ladies said their husbands really liked this remedy. And then menstrual influence from this Columbine was tremendous. Changes in the menses with people. No cramping like they usually do, light, not painful, no pain or discomfort during the proving, shorter cycle, less blood. My sex drive is way increased. I'm sensitive to smell. Boyfriend says I'm gassy, irritable, and angry. I only took the remedy for 2 days and was too disturbed mentally, angry, and physically she had vision problems to continue. We did still follow up with her for the month. These sensations, this openness and expansion, tingling, pulsing, buzzing, now that's something like we had in the other Columbine as well, and the cap sensation, pressure on the eyeball, the head, the chest, and I didn't list all those symptoms, right? And again, this heat, this feverish sort of heat. Dryness also in the mouth with this metallic taste. With the general symptoms, heavy, 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 like gelsemium, heavy body, tingling, buzzing, like on speed, felt in the whole body. And then shakiness of the hands and the body, feverish, warm, and cold, chilly, and chills as well. Now this is the remarkable thing now that we're looking at. The aggravation time in this remedy was 10 a.m., also 5 p.m., but most everything was aggravated at 10 a.m., a lot. It aggravated everything. The strongest modality we came up and saw was the better was cold, fresh air. Left-sided remedy, shocks electric-like, and open air ameliorates, and this dryness. Now, the homeopathic literature lists symptoms for Aquilegia vulgaris, and these are the symptoms, and it's listed with all of these authors here. And it looks to me, actually like one author copied from another. So, you know, it was sort of regurgitated through this materia medica, and this was about an unproven remedy. Possibly, I could suggest to use it in overly emotionally reactive states, which happen in these hormonal states, angered patients, also with this difficult concentration and slowness and confusion, and then the restlessness, especially at these times. Sleeping disorders with waking around 3 a.m. Headaches, especially right-sided, and at 10 a.m. A variety of throat pains. Throat has a different aggravation time altogether, 7 and 8 a.m. There are a number of respiratory problems that I didn't list, but they all have this 10 a.m. aggravation time, and nausea, especially at 10 a.m. and 12 p.m. Maybe we could treat morning sickness with this remedy. Is that something that comes to mind? With all the nausea and the heat and the better fresh air, and then menstrual complaints, all kinds of menstrual complaints, really. There are many symptoms. increased or diminished sexual desire. And this diarrhea that we saw in a few provers was in the morning at 8, not at 10. What I feel the results of both of these provings is that they did reflect the sensations and the themes of the Ranunculaceae family. And they coincide with historic herbal use, right? I mean, that was kind of amazing, except we couldn't really prove this attracting girls, thing. Love for love. The symptoms of the provings way outnumbered the historic data that we have on these plants. And the symptoms of Aquilegia vulgaris, there were twice as many as of Aquilegia Coerulea. Almost the same number of provers, but a lot more symptoms. So here is a suggested comparison, maybe. We have the Helleborus with a dull, slow, difficult concentration, right? This is Helleborus right here. It's from the same website, and it's the Christmas rose, and it does bloom in the winter, or I saw it like in November or something bloom. And then we could maybe compare it with Ignatia, with this overly sensitive state and offended in the globus, and sepia, irritable, sluggish, averse to company, right? Here's one of my favorite waterfalls. That's the runoff into Lake Isabel in Indian Peaks Wilderness. And I've set them many times, and some of our visitors and instructors and students have been up there as well. It's kind of a magic place to me up there. This big bowl of where the snow melts into and then runs all the way down to town. You do have the website there if you want to look at more detail with the proving. And if you don't find enough detail in what we have up there, you could also contact me, and I can possibly find more. We've come to an end. And I love this picture. I wish we were there, but right now it looks like it's snowing up there. Clouds came over, and it could definitely snow. Now, this one here is a different waterfall, but especially at this spot, this Columbine comes up every year. It's completely reliable. If you want to know where that is, I give you directions. There's also a little bit down the hill, because this goes steep down, and then you come over a little cliff edge thing, and down there's a moist spot, and that's where a bunch of Veratrum album is growing. And I've hiked these mountains so long and would look at the plants and go, oh, this looks cool. Oh, what a nice plant. I love it. But I never really looked into what it was, what they were. And then at some point it was like, I should know these. These are probably all homeopathic remedies. Many, many are, and one we made into a nice new homeopathic medicine. If you have anything to bring up or any questions, yeah, this is your continuing education code. I'll go back to this one.
Which one was in 2008?
That's where you were part of. Were you? 2008 was Colorado Columbine.
Is that on?
Is it
Yeah,
on?
I was just going to say, nice presentation.
Thank you, Nick. Oh, that means a lot from you. Thank you.
Of course, my head is in this zone right now, but thinking of the polarity kind of excuse me, kind of symptoms, wondering if they represent a different miasmatic state, or could relate to a different miasmatic state.
Mm-hmm. How to go about it. Now, I would say definitely if we look at the Aquilegia vulgaris, which we just looked at, and there are cancer-causing properties in the plant, and it was used for certain cancer situations in folk medicine, and it's a ranunculaceae, which Staphylococcus aureus is too, and Staphylococcus aureus do cancer miasm, right? So maybe it would fit into the cancer miasm. That's a short version. That's a shortcut. Yeah, I think we have to really look at the detailed symptoms to determine the miasmatic belonging of these. You're thinking about Columbine as an altitude sickness remedy. Nausea, have to go slow. We all know how that is. The higher you get, the slower you go. Very good idea. I love that. Yes.
What happens now? Will it be developed into a remedy?
Oh, it's good you're saying this. It is a remedy. Yeah, it is. You can get it at Helios. You can get it at Hahnemann Labs. I was trying to get an LM, Aquilegia vulgaris, because I would love to show you a case, but there are no cases. So please, if you try it, please let me know. On the amethyst, we got cases from other people. That was really helpful. Now, it is a remedy, but it's not in the homeopathic pharmacopoeia of the United States. And that is because we need clinical proof first, right? So we need cases to make this remedy enter the pharmacopoeia. And then I'm not clear exactly on how these enter our repertory, but I've been approached by, the people that write repertories. So I think only what has clinical data should go into the repertory is the agreement that the homeopathic community has, but I'm not sure. And it may be in some of the computer programs already. Yeah. They do, yeah. Oh, they're just working on ours. I forgot. So David had all the information on David Workington. He had all the information on the Columbine, and then he died. So it laid somewhere, and I was just contacted by somebody, resend it or something like this. So they can use it if they want. But it would be very nice and more reliable if we had clinical data. So I was looking for an LM potency, and you cannot get it. I can have it made. But then I went to Germany, and I thought, oh, surely I can get it in Germany, because they all talk about, my friends, like Jürgen Weiland and Anne Schade, they use the Columbine sometimes, but nobody could give me a good case for it. And so I called a very specialty sort of pharmacy in Hamburg that has all those strange remedies. Nobody has LM Aquilegia vulgaris. So this person that I have on this remedy for cataracts, which are, from what I hear, impossible to cure most of the time. So this person has such an incredible response to Aquilegia vulgaris on a general level that I think it should influence her eye, but it takes time. So I wanted to put her on an LM potency. So I've been looking, and nobody has it. So we have to have it made. Yeah. Hahnemann Lab would make it for sure, yes. Right, they'll make it. Yeah. But even Remedia.com didn't have it, and they have a lot of different remedies that you can't get otherwise in Austria. Yeah, we have a new medicine. We need it in many, many potencies, and hopefully it will help many people. Thank you for coming.